broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Take a look around.
Oh, yeah. I love it. This is the song. Work it. We got our own little mix going on over here. I love it. Hey, guys. Welcome back to the second season of HBO Looking here on AFTERBUZZ TV. I'm your host, Kellie Knezovich, and with me, I have Blake McIver.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
So we are back. This is the second season. Overall, Blake, thoughts?
So excited. Overall thought is so excited that it got picked up for a second season because this show is so great and so groundbreaking and so important.
Yes.
That I'm just glad that we're back.
Yes. I was so bummed that last season was only 8 episodes.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Left us hanging.
They for sure. And we actually got to see this time around a lot of loose ends, I guess, getting picked up, or we got to see, some of the things that happened. There are a lot of. First of all, we started off with this episode. The boys are going on a road trip. Is it the Redwood Forest, or did they mention where?
They didn't really specify, I don't think. I mean, it looked Yosemite adjacent. There were redwoods.
And there were trees, and Patrick was really excited about the trees.
That old tree.
That old tree. Oh my gosh, I loved it. So he and the boys are going up to Lynn's cabin, Lynn's house, or somehow it's Lynn's property. And Patrick wants to have a boys' weekend, a getaway of just kind of, let's just stop, pause, regroup, and just have fun this weekend. And I thought that was a really nice touch because I think at the end of last episode, they kind of left a lot of things hanging, and it was good to kind of regroup and start back fresh, I guess. And
yeah, it was nice to start with our main 3 guys.
Exactly.
And really just sort of reconnect, remember who these characters are.
Yes.
They're so interesting, and they're real people, and you feel like you know them, and it was great to sort of reconnect and go, oh yeah, that's right. They're archetypes, but there's so much more going on there than just the archetypes.
And we remember why we love them.
Yes.
And we get right back into that right away. We did see Kevin in this episode, which was interesting.
We saw a lot of Kevin in this.
It was interesting, to say the least. Yes. And frankly, I am glad that we saw somebody, whether it was Richie or Kevin. I'm glad we figured out who it was going to be. But still, there are a lot of, at the end of this episode, we don't know what's going to happen, because we do know that Richie is going to be in the season.
Yeah.
So how they're going to bring him back, what role he's going to play, don't know. But hopefully,
it'll be interesting to say the least.
Hopefully we'll figure it out next episode. Yeah. That would be awesome. Yeah. We'll see. So the boys drive to Lynn's cabin, and they walk into the house. And their facial expressions for a painting on the wall.
I was just going to say, are we going to talk about this painting?
I was so excited to see what the painting was, or art, what it was, because we see their faces, and they are so confused. They are
slightly horrified,
borderline disgusted. And what your thoughts on the painting?
Well, it was funny because the reaction was so broad, like you just said, and then they cut to the painting. I mean, first of all, it's like I can't stop loving Scott Bakula. The fact that he's on this show is amazing.
Yes.
But I kind of felt like I've actually seen worse paintings in art galleries in Palm Springs. Like I was like, it's not that bad. Like it's ridiculous, but like if you put it into the context of like he probably, the character Lynn probably had it done in like the 80s, and it's colorful and bold and pop art and whatever. I'm like, okay, it wasn't that terrible.
But honestly, I would be shocked if I went to my friend's cabin and I saw that was the first thing I saw. It's just kind of, you don't expect to see it.
Right. It's just a giant portrait of yourself.
It's like,
welcome to my home.
Yes. Welcome. So we see them. I think the next scene is they're out on the porch and they're drinking their little
minty iced tea.
Yes. And Patrick says he kind of wants to have a sober-free weekend and play a lot of board games, which I was shocked at Patrick's reaction or his want to do this, because I don't really feel like he's the type of person to be sober and just have a very chill kind of family-oriented.
It felt a little on purpose forced, like leading by example.
Yes.
It was like, oh, we're gonna try and get Augustin to like not be so crazy just for 2 days. Like
kind of like, and he's like, is this an intervention, guys?
Exactly. And what I loved about that is that's kind of what friends do. Like nobody has, I mean, it happens, obviously, people have interventions, but I think it's more common that if you feel like your friend is getting into trouble, before you do the grand gesture, you're gonna do the little like weird lead by example, like, hey, maybe we'll just be a little chill this weekend.
And of course, if he says, hey, are we having an intervention? You're going to be like, no, of course not. We're just like having fun this weekend. Anyone would do that. So I totally relate to him.
I get it.
It was great. We see that interesting hike to the tree. That story that he told about the women or the Native Americans leaving because they thought there were ghosts in the tree.
Yes.
Interesting. I've never known that. But I also loved that scene where Patrick is really trying to engage the other two in a hangout session, hangout time. And, he walks to this tree and he hugs the tree and the other two are completely bored out of their mind.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what Dom's interests in the weekend were exactly. I'm sure Augustine was really interested in partying it up, and he brought all the Molly and everything, so he wanted to live it up. But yeah, Dom, I wasn't exactly sure.
Well, I mean, at this point, he's the facilitator, being that it's Lynn's place. I guess it was like, well, I've got the rich boyfriend, so I guess I'll host.
Yeah, and he did say, let's not raid the liquor cabinet. Right. So he was
There is a line that
he didn't want to cross. We do know that did get crossed later when Doris came. Let's see.
But I did like the moment that you're bringing up, the literal physical tree hugging moment, because it was just like it was an adorable moment for Patrick, because it's like he really does care about things like that. Like he's out there actually trying to enjoy nature, actually trying to commune. Like I totally get that. I can identify with that. And the other two are just like, okay.
And I think he also really wanted to get the other two engaged in not only hanging out and doing something that they don't normally do, but he also wanted them to be interested in what he was interested in, which was the hikes, the trees and nature. He all he wanted to do was talk about nature and play games and not drink and not party it up.
And give us a little Native American history that we learned.
Yeah. I mean, you learn something new every day, right?
There you go.
So we go back to the cabin. And Dom is actively seeking, to find little clues about Lynn, which I thought was very interesting. He looked through an old photo album, and Lynn had pictures of him and his ex.
Yeah, his former partner.
Yeah, and so Dom was very interested. Let's be real, as we all would be. I would be very interested in, okay, so this is his house, this is his cabin. Let's look around. Let's kind of get used to and learn more about him. He wanted to learn more about Lynn and become more familiar with him.
And I feel like they did it, well, the story covered it in a very respectful way, because here you've got this sort of awkward, but this is very much a real thing for a lot of men dating older men that have had previous relationships and lost their partner to, in this scenario, Lynn lost his partner to AIDS-related illnesses. So it's like, it's a tough thing. Right. It's like, here's this whole life that I wasn't a part of, and now I'm a part of your life.
Right, he doesn't know about his history, and this is the way that he's finding out about Dom's history, and I think he's really interested, and I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting, though, and I want to hear your opinion and your reaction. Same with you, viewers, if you have anything to say. Did you guys notice the chemistry between Dom and Patrick, or was it just me?
No, it was just it's so much.
Yes.
I even read a recap, and I can't remember, I can't quote the exact source, but a recap said that I had read earlier today said, if you had this on mute, you would think that there was leading up to a sex scene, like that it was that intimate.
Yes. I mean, and I get that they're friends, they're best friends, and so they know everything about each other, and they're super comfortable with one another. Totally understand. But I did notice some, I don't know if it was sexual tension or...
The body language was so loving and so there was such an equal exchange of admiration there and support that it felt very intimate.
And I didn't look at that situation as, oh, they're just friends, they're just buddy-buddy, they love each other in a friendly way. I did sense some tension on the sexual forefront. It felt tense,
it really did.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and then Patrick started to open up, too, about telling Dom I regret the way that I was with Richie and I miss him, and started opening up. And then when Dom kind of went further to ask, oh, what do you mean exactly? Patrick, you know what? Let's just go play board games and let's just go. He cut it off.
Right.
He didn't want to think about Richie.
Right.
Or Kevin at this point in the show.
We'll see.
He didn't want to think about anything. I think it was just kind of a way for him to escape and a way for him to just not think about anything that he's been dealing with.
Well, and that's a very real moment. Like whenever
Absolutely.
we're having a relationship talk with our friends and our closest friends, like your friends hold up a mirror to you. And I think sometimes it gets a little bit uncomfortable when you actually have to look into that mirror and go, oh, this is what I did. Oh, yep, I really did that.
Yeah.
So it was great because that moment was so real. I've been there with friends where you're having that talk about the breakup and you're like, oh God, then there's the part that I'm responsible for.
Right. You don't want to take responsibility or blame, or it's hard. It's hard with a breakup. At this point, I think in the show at this point, we didn't know what was going on with Richie and or Kevin, and that's what we found out later. We found out what happened, so that's going to be exciting. We'll get to that in a little bit. To finish the night off, Augustine, I guess Patrick went outside to go look for woodpeckers, which at this point in the show, I was thinking, does he really want to go look for woodpeckers? Like, is he trying to, okay, let's see if I get cell service outside and I can go call Richie or I can go call Kevin? And no, it really was to go take a look at the nature.
Patrick wanted to see woodpeckers.
Yeah, and it was a really cute moment.
Another charming moment from
I actually
Festival.
really did enjoy that moment a lot because I wasn't expecting it. And I think this episode, we saw a side of Patrick that we normally haven't seen before.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. And in the first season, there was a lot of prudish behavior or sort of the performance of prudish behavior, even though we know based on his life, he's not a prude.
Right.
But I feel like this was a different way of coming at that. Like, no, he's a little bit more of an introvert.
Yeah. I really did like seeing that side of him. Yeah, it was great. And then we see Augustine, he goes outside to smoke and then just kind of call it a night at that point.
Now we know the drugs are there.
Yes, so we do know the drugs have arrived. The next morning, we see them on a river, or a kayak on a river. They're just kind of going down the river. And Patrick's super into it, again, trying to get his friends into it as well. And you see Augustine's just kind of chilling, laying back, and not into it as much as I think Patrick would like him to be into it. But then we see Daniel Francesi from Mean Girls.
Yes.
And we see him on the beach, and he's trying to get them to get involved, and it happens.
Go hang with the bears.
Yeah.
Well, I loved this because we get this amazing gay labeling montage almost. Because they go by this beach where there's all these kind of muscle boys, twinks and jocks and all of that happening, and the big rainbow flag, and then they turn the corner, and then there's this enclave of bears.
Yeah.
And within 30 seconds, we get all these different terminologies. They're labeling each other like crazy. I was like, it's funny because that's very true to life. That's very much gay culture. We're so obsessed with labeling everyone. I don't always love it, but it was very interesting, and I'm glad that they sort of made that a thing in the episode of oh yeah, everybody's trying to find their niche, find their label, find their club.
And if you think about it too, that's kind of what the boys are doing this weekend. They're all trying to figure out what their next move in life is. Because they're all just kind of confused at the moment, especially Patrick. He doesn't know what's going on.
He really doesn't. And what did they call him? I can't remember what they called him from the boat. And he was like, I think they just called me Chubby. Where he was like, what's a blank? I can't remember what the word was, but we had otters and seals and something. I don't remember what it was. I can't keep track.
It's so fun. It's so fun. They get home, and Doris is out sitting there, and she has already raided the liquor cabinet.
Cocktail in hand. You gotta love her.
Good to go. I love her answer, too. How did you get here? Well, I went through Augustine's window. Well, how did you know it was my window? Well, I found this, and it was pot, and there was something else. What was the other thing? Oh, and it smelled like misery or something along those lines. It's like, you are golden. Loved it. Again, painting of Lynn. She had no words.
Just skewering that painting. We just won't let it go.
No.
But that's so in character for Doris to not be having it. What the heck is this?
She'll go on and on and on. Yeah, it's perfect. Again, Patrick tries to convince, now that Doris is there, Patrick tries to convince everyone, let's go play board games. And she's like, are you kidding me? We are here. We're going to have fun this weekend. Then they're walking to a party. Or let's see. Sorry. I think at this point they Augustine pulls out the Molly.
Yeah, they're wandering. And that's when they find the sprite, the fairy sprite,
That's
whatever
right.
in the
He points
woods.
them in the correct direction. Yep. And Patrick is.
However unbelievable that moment is, I still loved it.
Do you think it's unbelievable?
Well, I don't know. I've never been to an
Right.
unorganized disco rave in the middle of the woods.
But I feel like if it's in the middle of the woods, like they're gonna have people. Where do I go from here? You know, I mean, it's the woods. There's no streets or there's
no
nothing.
signage.
Exactly. So you gotta have people walking around. Oh, this direction. So yeah, loved it. And then Patrick, of course, is freaking out. When will I feel? When will it hit me? Nervous as anyone would really be, I think, for his first time.
Totally.
Yeah, and.
And Doris is having 90s flashbacks, which just made me laugh.
So good.
It's like 94 all over again.
It's so good. I love Doris's character.
I do too. She's great. She's so real, and she's so. And when you think about how that character could so easily fall into the like very stereotypical fruit fly, kind of behavior, and she's not. She's such a fully fleshed out character, and I
great.
love that. And the actress is just brilliant. She just the comedy that she brings to the dialogue is just phenomenal.
And if you notice too, when the boys were by themselves, it was just the boys for the weekend. It was a totally different dynamic. I mean, when she came, it was granted it was all about partying, but she did bring definitely a different dynamic, and I think she brought a little bit more fun to the table.
Absolutely.
Maybe it was more like, okay, 3 against 1. We're not going to play board games, and we're going to go out. Maybe it was that, but still, it was something. It just made for a great weekend.
I think we all wish we had the Doris in our friend group, or that we were the
consider
Doris.
ourselves the Doris.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Oh gosh. Patrick and Augustine, they had a moment before it hit Patrick, which that was also a great time to
oh my gosh.
to stop that conversation, because the conversation got real at this point. Both of them are talking, and Augustine says that they do things differently. Or maybe it was Patrick. I can't remember which one said it, but Augustine deals with being a shitty person by being bad, whereas Patrick deals with being a shitty person by being good
or too good.
And that's those are their characters. That's
completely.
Exactly accurate. And we do see, however, Patrick is kind of starting to, I guess you could say, be a little bad.
Yeah. Well, he definitely feels bad about being bad. I mean, his guilt complex is palpable through the episode, which I think is really a cool thing, and also a very hard thing to play. So kudos to Jonathan Groff, because it's very hard to play guilt and tree hugging at the same time.
And he's also self-doubt. I mean, he's just, I don't know if I would say lost, but I definitely would say he's trying to find himself.
Completely.
And what's great about all these characters is I feel like maybe not so much Dom, but Augustine and Patrick, especially Patrick, I think they're dealing with the repercussions without thinking of them first, of their actions, the repercussions of their actions without thinking of them. And Patrick is starting to confess, I've been bad, I've been doing terrible things, and then all of a sudden, it just hits him, and he's like, I am feeling
there it is.
And that's when the conversation, the deep conversation, that's when it stops. And they go party.
Right.
They go dance, loved it, loved the music, loved the dancing. Everyone was having such a good time. They're all carefree. And we actually see a guy walk up to Patrick. Mm-hmm. And this guy's wearing a baseball cap. I'm pretty sure it was a Giants cap.
Yeah.
Or at least just a Giants color. Giants colors. We see him walk up to Patrick and just right away start making out.
Instant chemistry.
Yeah. But
Instant lust chemistry.
At this point, I wasn't sure if that guy was Richie or not. I think because I was secretly hoping deep down that it might have been Richie.
Well, he was definitely a Richie type.
Well, that's the thing. And I think that Patrick is still longing for that emotional connect. He still has that emotional connection with Richie, and so I think he was immediately drawn to this Richie lookalike. Mm-hmm. But then also he took off the hat, which at that point we all knew it's not Richie.
Right.
But I also kind of felt like maybe that was I'm taking off the hat, tossing it, done with the relationship. However, again, we know that's not the case. Well, at least we don't think that's the case because
we know Richie's going to be back in some capacity.
Exactly. So we know Richie will be back in the show at some point, somehow, some way. Well, but it was interesting. I thought that hat, kind of meant a lot. Like it was a good
little symbolic moment.
Yeah, exactly. I liked it. We also see we see Augustine go to his name's Eddie, I believe.
The character.
Yes.
Yeah.
We see Eddie.
I'm gonna have a really hard time not calling him Damien.
I know, me too. That's exactly what I said.
Which
when
I
was
know
like,
is
it's Damien from
terrible.
Mean Girls.
It's terrible.
But yeah, it was Eddie. And we see Augustine and Eddie have a great time. We didn't see them make out or kiss.
No, they were skinny dipping. But
yes,
yeah.
and we did see that, and it was actually kind of nice to see Augustine flirting. They were having fun, they were flirting, but they weren't, hooking up, or they weren't.
Yeah, it was a lovely sort of authentic and sort of sweet and flirtatious
Very
and
sweet.
natural, and kind of that true awkward moment of like, I think I like you. I kind of want to get to know you better.
I want to get to know you better. It wasn't just all about hooking up. It was
And we've got this great new character that works for a LGBT youth center and is like a really wonderful person, and it's so exciting and refreshing. Like here's someone that's in the community working for the community is really a cool. They can do a lot, and I hope they do a lot with his character.
He's back. I hope Eddie is back, not Damien. I hope Eddie is back in future episodes. I'd love to see that. Yeah. I don't know how they're going to make that happen because they're here in the woods. So he'd have to come to San Francisco. Maybe he lives in San Francisco.
Who knows?
We never know.
We'll
find out.
Sure. We will find out wherever that shelter is that he works.
Yeah, exactly. That was really cool, and I loved seeing Augustine very intrigued. And he was interested in what he had to say,
vulnerable.
too. Very vulnerable.
For the first time in the episode.
Exactly. And we hadn't seen him, I think, be vulnerable really with anyone other than Frank.
Right.
We've seen him be interested in other people, but we haven't seen him open up. And it was nice to see him open up. Again, I don't know, it was just really good to see him
Yeah.
do
It was a nice character development.
Yeah, something we haven't seen in a while. Very unexpected, yeah. So we see the Dom and I don't know his friend's name.
Dom and
dude.
New friend.
Yeah. We see them back at Lynn's place, and I was shocked to say the least. We see Dom going down on the guy, and the guy is, just chilling on the bed, and he sees this, he sees the photo album, and that's when he says, "Is this your dad?" And I felt so awkward during that moment. I'm also an awkward person, so that, it makes sense as to why I felt awkward. But is this your dad? No, that's my boyfriend. Does your boyfriend mind you fooling around? No, he doesn't. So at that point, we know that Dom is in an open relationship.
Yeah.
Which at the end of last season or last episode, we see him kissing Lynn.
Right.
But we don't know.
We don't know what, this whole episode was sort of our, figuring out that, this has become a thing, an actual thing, not just a casual thing.
Right. And we didn't know that until pretty much the end of the episode when he said, no, that's my boyfriend, not my dad.
Well, and I did love that moment with Patrick where he was like, can I call a 56-year-old man my boyfriend?
That's
I did love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It was so authentic.
Like 59 and 40 or however
like
old Dom is. But yeah, it
was hilarious. Because I was like, that's a real thing. It reminded me of in the Sex and the City movie when Carrie calls Big her man friend. Like, I can't call you my boyfriend. I'll just laugh in your face.
Too old or something. Exactly. I love that. I love that scene. And so let's see. We see Augustine and Eddie skinny dipping. We already discussed that. At this point, too, while Augustine and Eddie are in the lake, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we see Dom and the other guy in the cabin. We also see Patrick calling someone.
Oh.
Did you know this was Kevin?
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
Did you think it was? Did you want it to be Kevin?
I wanted it to be Richie.
Yeah, me too.
And I thought it was gonna be for a minute.
He calls someone and he says, basically like, can you come out here? Like, I want to hook up type of thing, and not those exact words. But then we see a car drive up.
Ugh.
And I was crossing my fingers for Richie because the guy that he was making out with on the dance floor looked a lot like Richie.
Right.
And so I was hoping he's like, I miss Richie. Let's, rekindle our whatever we had.
Fix it.
And it wasn't. It was Kevin, which he came and he said, this better be worth it.
That was so telling right there.
I was
like,
shocked.
Ooh, red flag,
Yeah.
toxic.
And then we also learned, too, that they've had multiple hookups, too, in the office, on the couch, random places. And And Patrick says, "Do you think we'll ever be able to have sex on a bed?"
In a bed.
Yeah,
Which was so sad, like so sad and real, and like, ugh. I mean, yes, you're technically having an affair.
Yeah.
But it's
I mean,
just...
and Kevin is still with a guy, exactly. So he's taken. He can't have sex in a bed, and at this point, none of the roommate or Augustine and Dom, they don't know about Kevin.
Yeah.
But it's awkward and hard, and it's difficult to maneuver that relationship.
It's tricky. And I want to like Kevin so much because I love Russell Tovey. Just, I love him and I love the way he's playing this character, but it's so hard to get on board with Kevin because he's so...
I mean, he doesn't say the right things. At least this thing was not the best way to start out season 2.
No.
By saying, this better be worth it. I would not be pleased hearing my man friend or whatever he is say.
Well, and we have to just suspend disbelief for a minute to be like, okay, so he drove up how far and how long did it take? And this is all still the same night. And there's a little bit of like, okay, we had to just kind of go with it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going to accept that.
Right. So they did the deed next to a tree.
Just like went for it.
Yep. And then right after that, poof, blink of an eye, Kevin was gone.
Yeah.
And
well, and that was a very interesting, I do love how Looking handles the sex scenes because they're not necessarily sexy. They're real. They are real.
They're so real.
And it's really great because it's it's more about the characters and it's more about what they're going through.
Right.
It's not explicit for the sake of being explicit, which is so refreshing.
It's I mean, people can relate to it.
Yeah.
And
you felt the disconnect with this Patrick Kevin hookup in the wood. Like it was just not it was not romantic.
It was not romantic at all.
It was
there was no
loving.
intimacy.
No, it was just like a
hookup.
quickie. Like it was really and so you're kind of like, okay, and then when you see the next morning and you're left with the aftermath, you feel that aftermath with him, which is it's just good storytelling.
Right. And that's, I mean, perfect point. You feel the aftermath, and Patrick is trying to deal with the repercussions of his actions because he clearly didn't think this through. I mean, I think the Molly got to him, and he was looking for a hookup. And why he didn't just hook up with the dude that looked like Richie, I don't know. But he did call Kevin, and he has some. I mean, at this point, I feel like he feels guilty, and he has to tell his friends about.
Definitely.
About what's going on. I love that. Oh gosh, I didn't write down who it was. I believe it might have been Augustine or Patrick. Somebody said that Dom popped his cherry to an open relationship. So I'm guessing that was the first time that Dom had hooked up with anyone else besides Lynn. And it wasn't Lynn's cabin, which was a little bizarre.
A little odd.
Well,
open relationships are a weird thing. I know that it's successful for some people. I just can't imagine it. Like I'm too much of a jealous person. I just can't. I would need to know way too many details and then I'd just obsess. Like but power to Dom and Lynn.
Yeah.
Good for them.
See, I'm loving that we're seeing more of their relationship because we didn't really know where they stood at the end of last season.
No.
And we now know that they're in a relationship. But now at the end of this episode, we know that they're in an open relationship.
It'll be interesting to see how if and how Lynn reacts when he finds out.
Yeah.
And to see if Dom has a similar reaction if Lynn goes outside the relationship and how that dynamic plays out. That'll just be interesting.
That'll
to see
be
how those
extremely interesting.
go.
Yeah. We finally wind up the episode with Patrick telling Augustine and Dom about Kevin. And still we kind of are left just what to do, what happens.
Who knows?
Yeah. So
he's got some important decisions to make.
Oh, for sure.
Which is exciting for the trajectory of the plot.
To see how his character is going to react. It's exciting to see. I mean, he's getting himself into a pickle with all this whole Kevin situation. We do, like I've said for the 1000th time, we know that Richie's going to be in this season. So I wonder how that's going to play out at all. And
I hope they get back together at some point. But we'll see. I mean, this could be the on again, off again. It could be the, not to oversimplify it, but it could be the Ross and Rachel that just takes us through the entire series
and
does
not that was like
and does not turn happy. But in this scene, this morning after scene, if you will, where they're all having coffee on watching the sunrise, we learned. Well, I learned some brand new gay terminology, which I consider myself very well versed in gay terminology, and I was surprised. He has a house in Virginia for HIV positive. That was news to me. I was like, I've never heard this.
Yeah. Me too. I'm like, still a little lost at that.
He has a house in Virginia. I didn't realize that was a thing. I learned something new.
Yeah. Well, I think think every episode you learn something new. Almost every scene too. You learn just different ways of going about how they're managing life and dealing with life, and it's always so interesting to me, and I'm sure to everyone else too.
Yeah.
So I think that pretty much wraps up the episode. What do you think we have in store for this season?
Let's see. Is it time for predictions?
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Alrighty. What do you think is going to happen with whether it's Patrick or Dom or Augustine?
So I'm hoping for a Patrick Richie rekindling, even if it's not permanent. I need some closure.
Yeah. No, we've been invested in these characters. I get it.
I want to see how Dom reacts to Lynn and Lynn reacts to Dom in this open relationship. Like that'll be really interesting. That I want to see more of this, of the pitfalls and successes of an open relationship. Right. And I want to see if Augustine and Eddie is the character we've decided. If there's a future for them, and and also I really am interested to see if Eddie being HIV positive has an impact on how quick Augustine is to jump into it, because I think that's a really interesting thing. I think that's a really important story that we need to tell. Right. I think there's so much. Destigmatizing HIV positive is so important, and it's an issue that happens so much in gay dating. And I think the more that they can explore that and put it on television, I just think we can help destigmatize even further by telling that story.
And I'm interested to learn more about that too. Yeah. I feel like it's a whole new area that I'm not really well versed in, and I feel like it's just they could do a lot with that, like you said.
Yeah, it would be really, really interesting. And we know just from the previews, the little reel, that Doris ends up in bed with a really gorgeous black man. So let's hope that's a relationship and not just I adore her.
I think she deserves to be so happy with the guy. I hope that this works out.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing if there's anything that happens with Dom and Patrick. I just feel like that scene was so telling of their future together, possibly.
It was.
And I kind of hope something happens. But of course, I love Richie, and I would love for him to be back in Patrick's life in a positive way. But yeah, I think the whole Dom and Lynn situation with the open relationship,
it's so fascinating.
I'm fascinated by it.
What if Patrick becomes the guest star in a threesome?
No. Oh, no. Patrick already has so many issues to deal with.
That would just mess him up further.
That would not be good. Oh, my gosh, no.
Bad prediction. Yeah. Bad prediction.
Hey, it's a prediction. I mean, it could happen. We'll see. Watch, you're going to be right. At the end of this season, that's exactly what's going to happen.
I don't necessarily want to be right on that one.
I know, me neither.
I'm just
hypothesizing. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please comment on YouTube and give us any pointers, or tweet at us at AfterBuzz TV. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Blake McIver, BlakeMciver.
And you guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Kellie Knez. Also follow AfterBuzz TV on Twitter and Instagram. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.